Hello, we're up to the very last reading of The Ice Monster by David Walliams and Tony Ross. So let's find out what happens, because in the last chapter, Elsie said to Queen Victoria, I don't want a medal. What is going to happen next? Never forget, chapter 77. You don't want a medal, spluttered the Queen. Everyone likes medals. All I want is for you to help orphans like me, replied Elsie. The Queen thought for a moment. Well, after all that's happened, I can hardly haul you back out onto the streets of London, can I? Then a smile spread across the old lady's face. All right, young Elsie, why don't you come and live here with me here at Buckingham Palace? You can keep me company in my old age. A splendid idea, your Majesty, remarked Abdul. All eyes turned towards the girl. I've got 25 friends, she replied. 25? spluttered the Queen. Yes, they're all from the same orphanage as me. When I ran away, I'd promised I'd never forget them, and I haven't. What is the name of this orphanage? Warmley Hall, home for unwanted children. Sounds frightful. It is. And you ran away, Elsie. I had to, your Majesty. The lady who ran it used to beat me black and blue, and I had to get out, or she would have killed me. The Queen took a deep breath. She could hardly believe what she was hearing, but she knew that the girl was sincere. What is the name of this lady, if indeed this creature can be called that? Mrs. Curdle, your Majesty. Munchie. Yes, your Majesty, replied Abdul. Have this Mrs. Curdle locked up in the Tower of London. With great pleasure, ma'am. A huge smile spread across Elsie's face. This story did have a happy ending after all. Sometimes it is wonderful being queen, said the Queen. And Munchie, yes, your Majesty. Send a fleet of carriages to collect those poor orphans and bring them here to Buckingham Palace. Oh, 25, ma'am. The Queen gulped. Yes, 25 of them. We do have room. At once, your Majesty. And with that, Abdul bowed and left. Of course, child, tonight is a very special night, began the Queen. It is? Asked Elsie. After being at sea for weeks, the girl had completely lost track of the date. Ah, yes, my child, it is New Year's Eve. At midnight we welcome in a new century, as the year becomes 1900. Perhaps you and your 25 friends would like to join me at a midnight feast as we watch the fireworks. Oh, yes, please, your Majesty. Splendid. I'll have my team of cooks lay on a feast. I can't wait to see them all again and tell them this incredible tale. Oh, I'm sure they have missed you, young lady. Elsie smiled and turned to look at Dotty before addressing the Queen again. Your Majesty. Yes, Elsie? Please can my friend Dotty come to the party tonight too? She's looked after me, and she has been like a grandma, actually. I would love to see in the new century with her. The Queen took a deep breath. Oh, yes, all right. Dotty, you can come too, but please refrain from calling me Ham. Oh, thank you, Jam, replied the lady. Oops. Private Thomas was trying to catch Dotty's eye to no avail. When that didn't work, he gave her a sharp poke with his elbow. What do you want? I'm talking to the Queen Majesty herself, the ruler of everybody and everything. Well, shouldn't the love of your life come too? Who's that? Me? I'll ask, replied Dotty. She put her hand in the air. Victoria, your Majesty. Yes, replied the Queen uncertainly. Please could Towering Thomas come to the party? She asked proudly. I won't take up too much space, added the man. Queen Victoria sighed loudly. Well, I suppose there's always room for one more. Thank you, ma'am, he replied. And just then the Admiral popped up, his hand in the air. Yes, asked the Queen. Ma'am, if I could be so bold. I've been an extremely close friend of Private Thomas's for many a year. No, you haven't, he corrected. Shut up, hissed the Admiral. I would miss him terribly if I couldn't share this momentous night with him. The old Queen sighed. Oh, all right. Should I bring my own rum? I'm sure we'd have a barrel or two. Splendid. But what will everyone else drink? Anyone else want to come to the party? She asked. All the old sailors started nodding their heads enthusiastically and murmuring in agreement. Oh, yes. Is this a buffet or a sit-down thing? And I can't stay too late. I need to be back at the hospital before midnight. Oh, yes, 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 you can all come, exclaimed the Queen. Now, please, leave immediately before I change my mind. You've never seen people exit a room so quickly. Boom, whiz, kaboom! Fireworks danced in the sky over London. Those lucky enough to be on the top floor of Buckingham Palace had the best view. The elderly Queen was hosting quite a party, and there were 25 Wormley Hall orphans, all Chelsea pensioners, Abdul, Dotty, and of course her guest of honour, Elsie. Fittingly, a huge Victoria sponge cake was served. It was so big that you could have dived into it, but it was demolished by the starving orphans in seconds. By the fireplace, Private Thomas got down on one knee to propose to his beloved. Dotty, will you marry me? Where are you? Asked the lady. Here, down here. Dotty looked down and spotted him. Sorry, I didn't see you all the way down there. Dotty, will you marry me? Oh, I forgot to rinse my mops out. Dotty! The little man was becoming irate now. Will you marry me? The pair kissed as everyone around clapped as she shouted out, Yes! Hurrah! Boing, 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 boing. 12 bongs from Big Ben meant it was midnight. 1899 had ended and 1900 had begun. Everyone crossed arms and Queen Victoria led to the singing of Auld Lang Syne. Should old acquaintance be forgotten and never brought to mind? Should old acquaintance be forgotten, Auld Lang Syne? For Auld Lang Syne, my Joe, my Auld Lang Syne. We'll take a cup of kindness yet for Auld Lang Syne. Robert Burns's words and the mournful tune made Elsie think about Willie. She missed her friend terribly. As she sang, a tear rolled down her cheek, and she stole away to the far side of the room so nobody could see her. Elsie did not want to spoil the celebration for everyone else. Only the Queen thought that Elsie was upset and broke away from the rest. The unlikely pair of friends found themselves alone in a corner as fireworks illuminated them from the window. What is the matter, child? The Queen asked softly as she placed her hand in Elsie's. This song. It just got me thinking about how much I miss Wooly. If truth be told, Auld Lang Syne always makes me a little tearful too, replied Queen Victoria, her eyes becoming misty. It always makes me think of my darling husband, Prince Albert. I lost him 38 years ago, but not a day goes by, not an hour, not a minute, where I don't think about him. Oh, it sounds like he was a very special man. He was, child, he was. The most perfect gentleman in the world. Elsie reached out her hand to the old lady and held it tight. See those fireworks, Elsie? Yes, ma'am. This is how I felt in my heart every time my Albert entered the room. Oh, that's beautiful, murmured the girl. It was real, and in the end, we both loved, child, and we've been given love in return. What more can you ask of life? I suppose. So replied the girl. I know so. Elsie, you may look around this palace of mine, this country of mine, this empire of mine, which stretches to the four corners of the globe, and think I have everything. But believe me, child, you have nothing without love. The Queen picked up a glass of champagne for herself and handed a glass of lemonade to Elsie. To Albert, said Elsie, and to Wooly, said the Queen. And that is the end of the story. But we have an afterword and some author's notes. So learn more about woolly mammoths. The woolly mammoth roamed Asia, Europe, and North America and appeared more than 400,000 years ago. They wouldn't have liked Arctic too much because it mainly consists mainly of ice, and there is no food for them there. Even so, mammoths lived during the Ice Age and survived very harsh wintry conditions. They were not unlike today's elephants, but had some differences, mainly their huge coat of thick brown woolly hair that kept them warm in the cold. They had two long pointy tusks which they used to fend off hunters and predators, and they used their tusks to dig through the snowy ground to search for water and food. Scientists believe the woolly mammoths died out due to humans hunting them, or because of climate change at the end of the Ice Age, or both. The last known mammoths lived on Wrangel Island in the Arctic Ocean, around the same time as the Great Pyramid of Giza was built in Egypt 4,000 years ago. So here's some facts. Woolly mammoths grew up to 3 meters tall, which is the height of two people standing on top of each other. A fully grown male mammoth weighed around 6 tons, which is the weight of 5 mini cars. Their tusks would grow up to 4 meters long. They were herbivores, which meant they didn't eat meat. Their diet consisted of leaves, moss, berries, grass, and twigs. Woolly mammoths lived and travelled in large female-led family groups. This is also true of their relative, the modern elephant. The average lifespan of a woolly mammoth is said to be 60 years. The best way to determine the age at which a mammoth died is by looking at its tusks. Age is shown by the number of rings on a cross-section of the tusk, but the early years wouldn't be accounted for. However, as these would show on the tip of the tusk, which usually wore away. The tail and the ears of woolly mammoths were actually quite small. This was to prevent heat loss from their bodies and also stop them getting frostbite. The first fully documented remains of a complete woolly mammoth skeleton were discovered in 1799 by a Siberian hunter and were brought to a museum in Russia in 1806. Willem Gottlieb Tellius used the skeleton of an Indian elephant as a guide to successfully reconstruct the mammoth, except for one mistake. He put each tusk in the wrong socket, so they turned outwards instead of inwards. The youngest person to discover a woolly mammoth was an 11-year-old Russian boy, Yevgeny Salander, and he came across the remains while out for a walk near his home in 2012. The mammoth was named Xenia after Yevgeny's own nickname, but its official name is, oh my gosh, it's a huge name, Sopokarinsky mammoth. And then he's got some real notes about what life was like in the Victorian world. The Ice Monster is a story imagined by David Walliams. So some of the extraordinary things you have enjoyed reading might never have happened in real life. But the author has set his story in 1899, so you might be interested in learning more facts about Victorian London. So the Natural History Museum took 7 years to build and eventually opened in 1881. In 1899, when the Ice Monster is set, its official name was the British Museum, Natural History, although it was commonly known as the Natural History Museum. When the museum first opened its doors, you could find animal and human skeletons there, as well as collections of minerals and dried plants originally belonging to a scientist called Sir Hans Sloane. Sloane was also famous for having invented hot chocolate. The famous replica of the Diplodocus skeleton, or Dippy as you might know it, wasn't actually donated to the Natural History Museum until 1905. There were no life-size models of whales on display in 1899, although there was a blue whale skeleton, and dioramas were later painted on curved backgrounds. The Royal Hospital in Chelsea. The Royal Hospital in Chelsea is a retirement and nursing home for 300 veterans of the British Army. It was founded in 1682 at a site by the Thames in Chelsea by King Charles II as a retreat for those who had served in the British Army. For special occasions and ceremonies, the residents, known as the Chelsea pensioners, wore distinctive scarlet coats and tricorn hats. And tanks. The mammoth is cleverly disguised as a tank by Elsie and Dottie. In fact, tanks were actually not invented until 1915 and were first used in 1916 on the Western Front in World War I. The Zeppelin. The Zeppelins were a type of airship named after Count Ferdinand von Zeppelin, who came up with the idea in 1874. They had a fabric-coloured cigar-shaped rigid metal frame filled with bags of hydrogen gas and a cabin, called a gondola, hanging underneath. The first prototype flight did not happen, in fact, until 1900 in Germany, and it was only in 1910 that airships were flown commercially. The HMS Victory. The HMS Victory was launched in 1765 and served in the American War of Independence and the French Revolutionary War. She is best perhaps known for her role as Lord Nelson's flagship at the Battle of Trafalgar in 1805, and in 1899, when the story of the ice monster was set, HMS Victory was actually docked at Portsmouth, where she still remains today. The HMS Argonaut was an armoured cruiser in the British Royal Navy. Launched in 1898, she was commissioned for service in China in 1900. During the First World War, she was used as a hospital ship. She was sold and broken up in 1920. Queen Victoria. Queen Victoria became queen when she was just 18 years old on the 20th of June 1837, and she reigned for 64 years until she died in 1901 at the age of 81. At the time, this was the longest reign of any British queen or king. Victoria married Prince Albert of Saxe-Coburg and Gotha in 1840. And when he died, she missed him very much and felt so sad that she rarely went out in public. Abdul Karim. Queen Victoria was also the Empress of India and asked that 2 Indian people be chosen to help prepare for celebrations for her Golden Jubilee. In 1887, Muhammad Abdul Karim arrived at Windsor Castle. He taught Queen Victoria the Urdu language and became the first Indian clerk to attend to her personally. London weather. Although the winter of 1899 was snowy, the River Thames did not freeze over. In fact, it had not actually frozen over since 1814, and since then has only frozen over partially one time, in the winter of 1963. And that is the final reading of The Ice Monster. And as you can see, David Walliams uses information from history to help write his books and make sure that they have some factual elements, but there is a lot of narrative or made up elements in these books. I hope you enjoyed it, and I'm getting ready very soon to start our new book, also by David Walliams and Tony Ross, called Gangsta Granny. And I just finished reading it to my class, and they loved it. In fact, every class I've read this book to do love it and become David Walliams groupies almost. Thank you for watching Granny Storytime and the reading of The Ice Monster.